So for Vlogmas, we are doing, as you know, some different things. And one of the things we wanted to talk about is some gift ideas. We both can be difficult to shop for. Like, we're not difficult to shop for each other. Like, I have no trouble. If I never had a list, I could probably come up with plenty of things. And I'm sure, he would feel the same way about me. Like, it was enough. Obviously, we might make mistakes because we wouldn't know necessarily what the other person might be buying throughout the year on their own. But for the most part, I mean, I feel like I could just run with it without a Christmas list. But that being said, we have other people we have to give lists for, and we never can come up with ideas. And we generally don't do gifts much for, we do like something small usually for our birthdays, and then sometimes we'll do something for Valentine's Day. Most of the time we won't. Most of the time we'll just, get something to eat or something. And then for our anniversary, sometimes we'll swap gifts, but we don't do like a ton of gifts throughout the year. I mean, at this point, we figure we're adults, we'll just buy things that we want, when we want them. But so we do try to like make Christmas like a really big event, and it's fun, and we try to come up with like fun things we want, and a lot of the things that you wouldn't necessarily buy yourself, but you would want. And then as we get closer to Christmas, I usually will take like books that are on my list of books I want to buy and that I just haven't gotten to yet, and then I'll kind of move them over to a Christmas list and then not buy them. So this is a Christmas, I guess, list, but at the same time, I mean, obviously, I know not everybody celebrates Christmas and, different holidays, but honestly, most of these gift ideas really work probably year-round, if you have a reader in your life and you cannot come up with any ideas for them. And Sir Chong's going to do one for comic book readers and comic book lovers. Obviously he'll have a little more insight into that than I might. So I'm going to do the reader list and he'll do the comics list. And yeah. So there are 10 ideas on here, and I'll kind of talk about them briefly into, why they're a good idea, why they may not be a good idea. You have to kind of know the person. And I'm not going off the beaten path for a lot of these. I mean, they're generally just, pretty traditional ideas for readers. But I think, it's nice sometimes if you go on, you can go on to a website and it's like, here's some ideas for readers. But I'm going to give you just from a reader's perspective why some of these things are useful and why they may not, and then that can help you decide, are these things that this reader in my life would want. So the first one is a reading journal. And so I think most people, a lot of readers now are using Goodreads or some version of that. So they may have like an electronic way to track what they're reading, their thoughts on the books, their reviews, share them with other people. But not everyone is doing that digitally. And also sometimes people have that, but they also want to keep their own records. And so a reading journal is kind of nice, just because you can write your thoughts about a book as you're reading, when you finish reading. And a lot of the reading journals, you could go with a traditional journal that's just blank and then somebody can kind of turn it into a reading journal, or just, journal along while reading a book, just thoughts they have, especially if the person's also a writer. But then they also have formal reading journals where, they essentially will have, set questions for each book and date started and date ended. And so, there are a lot of people who still like to have that sort of physical record. And then these are things, over time could really, especially if you have younger readers in your life, these are really, a nice way to kind of keep track of their reading journey throughout their lives. And so, I wish I had like reading journals from when I was, 13 and 15 and even 20, just kind of it would be nice to be able to look back. I mean, we didn't have Goodreads, we didn't have anything like that. But, who knows what could happen with different apps and technology. And so this is I think it's a nice idea. But again, you have to figure out, like, is the person living in a studio apartment? They may not have a lot of space, do they need something physical when they have it digitally? But, considering the person, this I think, can be a really good idea. So that's number one. Number two is book plates, and this is obviously for people who read predominantly physical books and also that lend out their books. I don't lend out my books, partially because people tend to lose them. Also, I just don't really see anybody really very much. Most of my friends and family are just further away, and I mean, the only person I really am sharing books with at this point is Sir Chunk. I will sell books when I'm done with them if they're not books I love and I want to keep. But for the most part, I'm not, like, lending them out. But, a lot of people do. And especially, and again, some of these, will probably depend on the age of the person. I think especially when I was younger, these are great because you can put who the book belongs to, but you're not writing in the book itself, so you can always, like, peel it out, later if you want to sell it. Or, I mean, if not, it just has kind of a nicer feel than having it just, like, your name written in the book. But, they're also a good way to kind of keep track of things. Who did I lend this to? And then if you find the book on, your friend's shelf, you can be like, hey, this is my book. So again, this is just something that they even have book plates that are kind of like designed like old school library cards where you can, like, write the date that you lent it to someone, and then you write their name, so it belongs to me, and then you write your friend's name and the date you lent and the date they returned it. So that's another thing if you're really lending out a lot of books. But they're just nice. They're a nice way. And also, if your friend kind of borrows something and it's a year later and they're like, who did I borrow this from? It's just a nice way for them to know whose book it is. So again, I think that's a very limiting gift. It would be kind of useless to me, but I do think it's something that readers, can use, depending on the person and their situation. So number three is a reading light, and obviously this is for physical books. Kindle has, Kindle doesn't actually have I think there's a reading light you can get for the Kindle, but the Fire and the newer apps have, they just have the same as like a phone or a tablet. They have the same lighting. So, but if you're reading a lot and you don't have good lighting, or you do have good lighting and you read at night, and, there's people that you live with, whether you're married, whether you have roommates, whether you're, young and living at home, and, you share a room with your siblings, and you don't want to disturb people by leaving the light on all night, but you do want to read, these are really nice because you can have, they clip on essentially to the top of the book, and they kind of fold over, and they just illuminate the book, but it's light, and it's actually a very soft light, so, you're not dealing with the glare of, like, a computer screen, and so it really does contribute to the idea that a lot of people read before bed, before they go to sleep, and it's supposed to be relaxing. But, if you're reading, you got the blue light, I think, from, like, the screen. If you're reading on a tablet or on a phone, and if you're leaving your light on, I mean, it can confuse your brain, essentially. So having this soft light, having it mostly dark, can really help also, make reading kind of that relaxing stage between being awake and being ready for sleep. So a lot of benefits to this. Like I said, the biggest downfall is you have to make sure that the person you're buying for is a reader of physical books, or, has space for a lot of physical books. Because if they're reading predominantly, digitally, then this is not going to serve much purpose. Unless they have, like I said, the sort of old school, I think it's like the Paperwhite or whatever, Kindle, because those are kind of look like real books and they don't have the lighting. So the next one is a really good bookmark, and not, obviously we all have like a bunch of paper bookmarks and little bookmarks that, maybe are valuable, but like a nice metal bookmark. And I picked this somewhat offensive but funny one as an example. But these are nice because they're really sturdy, and they're bookmarks that, they last, because obviously The paper ones either get lost, they just get old over time. If you have pets, they will chew on them, especially if they have the tassels. And so the nice thing with the metal ones is they'll stay intact. They even come in like nice boxes. I am not a Bookmark user, which makes Sir Tong very, very upset. So I will use bookmarks when I'm reading his books, but usually, like, I have a stack of bookmarks that I just never use because I just don't use bookmarks. So that's something to check on. But, I mean, I never mind, like, a really cool bookmark. Obviously, you may not, like, they don't take up a lot of space. So even if I'm not using bookmarks, I have never felt like, a bookmark, as a gift, especially when they're really nice or they're really, like, interesting or fun. And I do think most readers don't like dog-eared pages. They don't like making a mess of their books. I just happen to be one that I like to love my books, and I like them to look, loved and used and written in, and I've always been the kind of person who, beats my books up to the point. I don't mean to, it's not like I'm deliberately out, like, sabotaging my books. It's just I like to read the same book over and over, and, I like to take it with me anywhere, and so I don't want to always worry about keeping it pristine, but, a lot of people do want their books to look nice, and so, and especially if you get, like, a nice edition. So definitely consider, a nice bookmark. I think that's just a really good one in general. And I think most people can make use of them, even if they don't read a lot of physical books, like I said, or don't use bookmarks. It's just, they don't take up much space and they can be really nice. The next thing I have is blanket and socks, because I am always cold. I live in New England, though, and so obviously if your reader is living in, like, Arizona or something, they may not want a blanket and socks. Although, I don't think anyone minds, being comfortable. But, a lot of times, especially in the fall and winter, which are really good reading times. I mean, obviously in the summer you're off on the beach, you're not going to need a blanket and socks. But, there's nothing better than curling up when it's kind of cold in the winter, especially if you live in, like, a snowy area, and, having a nice warm blanket to, like, snuggle in on, and then put some nice warm socks on and sit with your book and hopefully, like, a warm cup of coffee or tea or cocoa or something. So, I mean, this may be a personal thing. I'm sure there are people who don't care at all about blankets and socks, but my goal in life is to be as comfortable as humanly possible. And so I'm always, like, I know I'm always asking for blankets, socks, anything to just stay warm and comfortable. I love winter, but, one of the things I like is, like, when you're cold, you can always add blankets, socks, sweatshirts. When you're warm, you're just warm, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, I do think, though, that, like, a lot of people like to curl up in, on the couch, in bed, in a nice chair, by the window, and so even if it's, relatively warm where they live, I mean, a light blanket can always be nice anyway, because, it can get cold, and even in the warm areas in the winter, so that's one, and that's nice because it doesn't matter if they're a physical or ebook reader, because, whatever they're reading, they're still going to want to be cozy. And the next thing I have is a mug. I just think, and this is a Snorlax mug, which why not? But, mugs are just great. I don't know why, but I feel like almost everyone I know, has something to drink when they're reading. I don't like to eat when I'm reading usually, but I always like to have, a cup of coffee nearby, or, sometimes a bottle of water, but coffee is good with reading. I don't know why. It's just, again, it goes with that coziness. Some people really like tea. I know tea is a big, tea goes really well with books. So a mug is good because, you can have coffee, you can have tea, you can have cocoa. It goes with that coziness. You can even just have, like, wine and water in a mug. It's not like the end of the world. But, so a couple things about the mug. One thing I highly recommend are those, like, I don't know what they're called, like insulated travel mugs. They're kind of like metal. Those are great because I'll always, like, make coffee and sit down to read, and then suddenly, like, 3, 4, or 5 chapters later, I'm like, oh, I haven't touched my coffee and it's starting to get cold. And so those are nice because they keep your coffee warm or cold if you're drinking iced coffee in the summer. So that's kind of a nice thing. So if you want to upgrade to an insulated tumbler or mug, that's always good. And then also, you don't know, like, it might be coffee, it might be tea. So, I mean, if they're not a coffee drinker, maybe, a mug that talks about coffee, or if they're not a tea drinker, a mug that talks about tea may not be appropriate, but, just, the person. So find one that works for them. And then I will say, like, I think a lot of times people, like, mean well, and they'll try to buy tea or coffee for people. But if you don't know what, like, the person you're buying for, what kind of coffee they drink, what kind of tea they drink, you're probably better off either getting them a gift card or just getting them the mug and then, like, having them pick out their own coffee and tea, because people can be really particular. I mean, I know, like, if you hand me coffee, I'm going to drink it no matter what, but I'm not, like, a flavored coffee drinker, and so a lot of times people will be like, here's some flavored coffee, and I'm like, But, again, I'm not going to turn down coffee, but I know some people can be very particular about the kind of coffee they like or the kind of tea they like, so. All right, so now I'm going to move into things that may be a little more unique. This challenge book, I've seen a couple people list this for this year. I don't know if it's new. I know I asked for this for Christmas. It's the Ultimate Reading Challenge, and it's like a bunch of challenges, essentially, that you open up throughout the book. It's like a pop-up book, and you open it, and they have little prizes if you complete the challenge. And I think there's 25 or 50 or something. So it's almost one a week, or one every couple weeks. And so, what I find with challenges is they just really motivate me to kind of explore the books I already own, and sometimes step outside my comfort zone, try books maybe that I want to read, but, have been putting off. And they kind of give me that, like, little boost to kind of go, no, that's it, let's try something. And so, some people find challenges intimidating. And, I mean, I think what's nice, though, is a lot of times they're broad enough that you can come up with some way to do it. I mean, and honestly, it's not like if there's 52 and it's supposed to be done in a week or 25. I mean, who cares? If it takes you 5 years, it takes you 5 years. So I always think this is, like, a great reader gift because it just kind of helps people, like, maybe explore different types of books or... and I don't know any reader who's not looking, no matter how long our TBRs are or how many books we own, every single one of us, I feel like, is always looking for new books, is always open to new books. So, it's just, it's a very, like, I feel like there's, like, a lot of hoarding personality traits that come with reading. Every reader I know is just like, let's buy all the books. And then they just keep adding books. And then you're like, I don't have time to read all the books I have, but I'm going to keep adding them. Because there's just so many books. And it's like you want to try everything. You want to read everything. And everyone's talking about different books. And you're like, I want to get to that, but I have these other, 500 books I need to get to. So this is always a fun way, I think, because we all tend to buy books or ask for books for Christmas or somehow stumble into books that are just, like, starting to collect dust or collecting, virtual dust on our e-readers. And this is a nice way to kind of dig into especially some of those that have just been sitting around for a while. All right, so the next one is a subscription box. And this is a little particular because you're going to want to know, what kind of books the person likes. The most simple one would be something like Book of the Month Club, because, the person they generally get, I think, like 4 to 6 choices, of the month, and they range, there's fantasy, there's romance, there's usually some kind of literary or general fiction, usually something leaning YA. I mean, that's obviously better for, people who are at least, like, reading adult fiction. You don't want to get it for, like, an 8-year-old or anything, but Book of the Month Club is good. And I can put a few different subscription boxes in the comments just so that you can see some of the options. There's also, Aardvark Book Club, which same as the Book of the Month Club. It's just a different collection of books. I know Owl Crate's popular for YA books. And then you can get into like all kinds of like very specific types of books. I'm sure there's, sci-fi fantasy collections, and then there's like customized ones you can do as well. So, like I said, I think I'll probably list a couple, and then I might, find another, video or list, like I know there's a blog that literally is just like all subscription boxes. They could be like books, they can be anything. So I may just like link that so you can see, there's probably hundreds that I'm not even aware of. So, I have my own subscriptions. So, this is something I'm always like, oh yeah, and I always say to my husband, you should totally get this. But then like, I end up like buying half the books anyway. So he's like, I'm not doing that. Just tell me what books you want. But I think it can be fun, especially when you don't know what books they need, but you want to get them something. It's kind of a nice way to be like, I know you like to read. I don't know what you want to pick, but here you have some control over it. So, you can do it as like 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year. So, you can really decide like, okay, I'll let you try it for a few months, and then they can renew it if they want. They don't have to. So if they don't like it, if it doesn't work for them, and you can save your credits as well. So if like you buy them 3 months and they don't like anything for like the first 4 months, they can just keep skipping. And then eventually, they can pick one. And then if they have to skip a couple more months, so it's not like it's going to go to waste. I mean, at some point, I'm sure they'll come up with a few books they want. So, so that's something that's a nice way to kind of engage them and give them something. And it's a nice gift too, because I think it like, it kind of extends the holidays or extends their birthday or whatever. So, they have it, especially if you do like 3 or 6 months or even a year, they basically have like, when everybody's long past, gift giving and holiday season, they're still getting that every month. So that's kind of fun. All right, so I'm going to go into the 2 big ones. And so, an e-reader is a nice gift. Obviously, they can be very expensive, but you can actually get like Kindles, like the basic Kindle, fairly cheap. And then obviously you can go up to like an iPad or something. So, the costs can vary dramatically, but even, and I think, obviously you have to know who the person is. If they are really 100% opposed to e-readers, probably don't want to get them an e-reader. If they have a brand new one, you probably don't want to. But, even if you have an e-reader, if it's been a few years since, get a sense of like how long ago they updated it. They may want a new one. It's the nice thing about something like Kindle is that all of your books, if you've been using the same Kindle for 5 years and somebody buys you a new one, it's like the books you just go to your Amazon account and it's like, swap, and then you just move them all into your new Kindle. They're in your cloud, in your library, so you can just kind of download them to that. So it's nice that, people have that option. And, I think even people who are like reluctant to have an e-readers can just be really nice, especially if you travel, if if you're younger, and you're, in a limited amount of space, if you're in high school or college, going into your first apartment, you have roommates, they're nice because you can have thousands and thousands of books on this very small thing. And I know that's been, for me, that was for a long time. I got sick of moving books around, and I've now gotten back to like filling my house with books, which I probably shouldn't have, but, it's been nice to have everything kind of in one place. And it's also just nice because, you can take it with you anywhere. So your book can really stay with you any place you go. So if you're, if you work out of the house, if you are constantly, if you're regularly going to doctor's appointments, if you have kids and they're playing sports or something, an e-reader is nice because you never have to worry about like, oh, I forgot my book, just keep it with you. And what's nice about like Kindle and, I'm sure some of the other e-readers is that you can also download the app to your phone. So even if you forget your Kindle, you can go onto the app on your phone for Kindle and then get the book that you were reading right out of the library. It'll tell you, it'll save where you were in the cloud, and then you can just download it. So, you always still have access, even if you forget your e-reader. So they can be very, very useful, and I think there's a lot of benefits to them. So it's a nice gift, and it's a nice kind of gift because it's the type of thing that people may have bought their e-reader, but like I said, it may be like 5-6 years old. They maybe haven't updated it. They may have never bought one, just using the app on their phone. And it's like the kind of gift, I always feel like gifts, especially for the holidays, should be things you wouldn't necessarily buy yourself. I mean, obviously, sometimes there are things that you need or want that, just happen to come out right around the holidays. But it's always nice to get something that's like, I don't want to say impractical, because, this is obviously a practical gift, but that's a little more like something that you don't need, that you are kind of like, oh, that would be nice to have, because that's really what like gift giving is for, right? For somebody to like help you out and get you something that maybe you didn't think you wanted, or you didn't know you wanted, or just that you're putting off because groceries are $1 billion, and who has time and the money to buy an e-reader at this point? So this is a nice gift. And then obviously the last one is buy them books. It's frustrating to everybody I know who buys me gifts, because I'm always like, I don't know, get me books. And they're like, but what books? And so I have an ongoing list. And so, as we get close to the holidays, like I said, I'll move a bunch of books off of my to-read list that I don't own. And I will just be like, here's my Christmas list books, and I'll take them off, or I'll mark them somewhere as like, those are my Christmas list books, so that I don't go out and accidentally buy them. But it can be tough, because you're like, I don't know what they read. I don't know what they have read. I don't know what they like to read. So if, obviously this is going to vary depending on how close you are to the person, how much you follow their reading progress. If you know them well and they haven't read a book, you could always get them something that you recommend, that you've read, that you think they would like based on, what you know about them. You can always, ask different, whether it's somebody on BookTube, someone on Book Talk, or somebody at a bookstore, a librarian. You're going to ask people, like, hey, do you have any recommendations? I know this is the kind of stuff they like. You can always get them, like, nice editions. Like, there's the Folio Society. They have beautiful editions of books. So you could get them, like, just a really cool gift edition of a book they love, because even though they haven't, they've read it, they may want like a really nice copy. And then worst case scenario, if you can't come up with any ideas, an Amazon gift card, a Barnes & Noble gift card, obviously an indie bookstore gift card if you have those. Where I live, like, you would think, because I'm like near a bunch of colleges, you'd think we'd have tons of indie bookstores, and we do not. We have, I think, one that's like a regular bookstore, and then we have one really cool used bookstore. And it's very frustrating, because I love used bookstores, and I wish we had like 1 million of them. And within to get to the other used bookstore I really like is over an hour away. And then the rest are all like several hours away. So it's super frustrating. But, obviously figure out where they shop. But, and I hate to say, like, go to the corporate companies, go to Barnes & Noble, go to Amazon. But, I mean, Amazon is always good, because, like, if they use Kindle, if they use, regular books, if they want to buy, themselves a bookmark, you could, there's always something you can get. And I know it's, it's hard, because I'm not always a fan of sort of like the big companies, but, I don't know too many readers who won't like at least buy some books if they're given a gift card. So, and, the books can be cheap, but, wherever that, that they shop, if you, because I know some people really do try, to like shop local or shop indie. So, kind of, if you can figure that out, get them a gift card, or, even just like a Visa gift card and be like, this is for your books. So those are just some gift ideas. Like I said, I didn't go like way out there with any of these. These are pretty common, but, I hope that it helps. Maybe if you're thinking of some last minute gifts for readers, just get a reader perspective. And what about you? If you're a reader, what kind of gifts do you like getting? Or if you're buying for people, what kind of things would you recommend, that maybe I didn't think of, that, the readers in your life have really been happy with? So let me know. I'm always looking for ideas for my own list because everyone gets frustrated because I'm like, I don't know, get me books. You know? So this is my answer to that because I've been saying that for, my whole life. I don't know. I like books. That's generally what I answer when people ask what I want for Christmas. So, this is my answer to that. And so if you have more to add, I'd love to hear it. All right. See you soon. Bye.